Now, less than a week after a 10-year-old girl drowned in the sea in Essex, Coast Guards and lifeboat crews say they're being overwhelmed by other problems.
Yes, Great Yarmouth Coast Guards reported one of their busiest days of the summer yesterday, being called out to 13 incidents.
Well, our correspondent Natalie Gray is with the Wells lifeboat team in North Norfolk. Natalie, thankfully no more tragedies, but plenty of close calls.
Absolutely. Thankfully, a much quieter day here today. As you can see, a balmy evening in Wells and still warm enough for a dip. But don't be fooled by the calm seas. You see, 2 years ago, a 12-year-old boy died just here. Yesterday, it was a frantic day for the Wells lifeboat crew. They're based just over there. 3 times they were called out. Firstly, to children in an inflatable toy dinghy being blown offshore at Cley, then to children in an inflatable here, and lastly to a woman caught by an incoming tide at Stiffkey. It seems that even though a child died on our coastline this very week, people are still dicing with danger.
The growing tributes for the drowned schoolgirl in Clacton, a reminder of just how cruel the sea can be. But just a short distance away, youngsters ignore the dangers, their inflatable boat tossing about in the choppy waves. Others, though, were being more cautious. The death of 10-year-old Stella Akanbi from Milton Keynes on Sunday here playing on their minds.
It's certainly concerning, especially with what's been in the papers and in the news recently.
We've said to the children not to go anywhere near it, really, to stay, because it is so rough. A bit further up the coast there's somebody blowing up sort of a dinghy, and you sort of look at the weather today and think, you know, there's no way that they should be blowing that up and considering taking it out on the sea.
Along the coast at Hemsby in Norfolk, a man and 2 children soon find strong currents carrying them far away. Lifeguard Jake Davidson caught up with them to warn them, and a grateful but embarrassed father eventually brought the girls back to shore.
It's frightening how quickly that dinghy whipped along the coast here and how far they got in just a matter of seconds. I reckon it was a good 200 yards before the lifeguard caught up with them.
People don't really realise the wind, how strong the wind is out to sea. So with an offshore wind, the dunes block it a bit on the beach. And once they get out to sea, it's much stronger and they end up within minutes. And you have to have a lifeboat getting called out to go and get them. And it can end up much more serious.
Great Yarmouth Coast Guard were involved in 13 rescues yesterday alone, 3 over the Wash in Lincolnshire and 10 in Norfolk, including stranded motorboats, people cut off by the tide and a number of weaver fish stings. And Thames Coast Guard dealt with dozens of calls, 4 of them serious incidents at Leigh-on-Sea, the River Crouch, Jaywick, Clacton and Walton-on-the-Naze, ranging from a swimmer in difficulty to a fishing boat with engine failure. Suffolk escaped largely incident-free, thanks in part to an onshore wind.
In proportion, you're always going to get somebody who gets into trouble. That's human nature. I mean, they think it's safe, and it looks safe, and it feels safe, and it's great fun. And every now and again, you're going to get somebody who gets into trouble. If 100 people go on the beach with inflatables, 1 person will get into trouble. It's just nature.
Back in Hemsby, and Lisa Hickling, on holiday with her children Vincent and Holly from Northampton, defended their use of an inflatable on the sea.
My son was on the beach and he was in the sea, and we'd got the rope tied onto the dinghy, and my daughter was actually holding onto it, and I was actually down there as well.
Meanwhile, mums Lisa King and Nicola Catlow were on Baywatch as they watched their daughters Courtney, Keely and Amber play in the sea.
You keep an eye on them, make sure that we come down to the water to watch them, so obviously keep them in the 2 flags.
We're on patrol, we're on our guard. No, I wouldn't be happy sitting back there. I'd like to see what she's doing, keep an eye on her.
Coast Guards agree they'd like everyone to keep their kids in reach when they're on the beach.
Happily then, a much quieter day for the emergency services, but of course while there's good weather people will be drawn to water, but we don't want to be alarmist. A Coast Guard told me you're more likely to have an accident on the way to the seaside than at the seaside. Back to you.
Thanks very much, Nat. Firefighters in Essex will next week resume talks with bosses aimed at settling the dispute over plans to cut jobs. The Fire Brigades Union says talks will continue next Wednesday, the same day that members will start an overtime ban. Bosses in Essex say there'll still be a high level of service.
Well, next, he's a scruffy mutt, no doubt about it, but now a dog who's famous for being ugly yet friendly has been beaten by a gang of youths.
Mugly, who was named Britain's ugliest dog by a national newspaper in 2005, is recovering from the attack, which happened after he went missing from his home in Peterborough.
Mugly has never been beautiful, but now he's looking even worse for wear. The 5-year-old Chinese-crested Shih Tzu was set upon by thugs after he escaped from his home in Peterborough. His owner, Bev Mickelson, searched high and low, but couldn't find him.
I put up a load of posters, and later on that day, a lady phoned and said that she had the dog, but she'd had to rescue him from 5 young lads that were kicking him, punching him and hitting him with a stick. So I went round to get him, and we took him to the vets and had him checked out, and he was bruised and a few sores, but he'd be all right.
In 2005, Mugly was crowned the world's ugliest dog in a national competition. He is, by nature, fairly hairless, but after the attack, he's almost completely bald. The gang pulled out the only few tufts of fur he had left. Bev says she can't understand why anyone would want to hurt him.
Mugly's he's got a lovely character. He's over-friendly. He loves absolutely everybody. He just wants to play and be involved with them. He would never have understood why someone was hitting him.
Thankfully, despite the attack, Mugly is still his playful self. He may be ugly, but to everyone in the Mickelson household, there's no doubt he's top dog.
And I totally agree with that. Yes, he is ugly in a very cute sort of way, but we're glad to hear he's recovering well.
I think he's got a certain charm, Mugly. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder, isn't it? Next, a quick reminder to watch Countrywise tonight at 7:30 on ITV1, which comes from Rutland Water. Paul Heine talks to Tim Appleton, the warden at Rutland, as he prepares for the British Bird Fair, which attracts twitchers from all over the country.
The fair is the biggest of its kind in the world, with around 20,000 visitors, many of them trying to catch a glimpse of the reservoir's famous ospreys. The fair is in its 20th year and raises millions of pounds for bird conservation work around the world. So a reminder, that's Countrywise at 7:30 right here on ITV1.
Now, the harvest is well underway, and there's one crop in particular that's been flourishing in the sunshine of late.
Yes, sunflowers have certainly been living up to their name. And at one farm near Peterborough, the giant flowers are now big business, as Matt Hudson reports.
There are literally millions of sunflowers here, and this is just a small part of the biggest cultivation of these beautiful plants in the country. A labour of love for farmer Nicholas Watts, who's been growing them here for more than 10 years.
It is amazing, and I like to see all the insects on the plants as well, the bees and the butterflies on the sunflowers. Without the insects in this world, we wouldn't have much wildlife.
This field is about 30 acres, about a fifth of the area given over to sunflowers on this farm at Deeping St Nicholas, north of Peterborough. At about a tonne of seeds an acre, that's 150 tonnes a year. It's all sold as bird food to the public, some of it through the farm's own shop. Like many huge developments, this all came from a very small seed. Nicholas and his family open up the farm to the public, and they were often asked by members of the public if they could buy some of the bird seed that was apparently attracting so many birds here. Nicholas thought that would be a great idea and started growing sunflowers so he could sell their seeds. When they're young, sunflowers turn their heads throughout the day, so they're always facing the sun. Once mature, like a vast army, they all face the same way, towards the sunrise. Some of them grow to over 7 feet tall. Once the seeds have filled in the entire centre of the flower, the petals begin to fall, but they won't be ready for harvesting until October. As well as growing sunflowers, Nicholas has turned over large areas of his farm to help wildlife. There's new hedgerows, copses, areas of marshland and other eco-friendly measures.
We've put in cultivated margins. Those are 6-metre wide margins that we just let the weeds grow. Because the insects live on the weeds and the birds want the insects to feed their young. And without the insects, they don't have a very good breeding season.
Nicholas's family has farmed this land since 1883, when William Gladstone was Prime Minister. One might imagine his ancestors would approve of how he's looking after it. Matthew Hudson, Anglia News, Deeping St Nicholas near Peterborough.
They are beautiful. This sunflower was my mum's favourite flower when I was growing up, so we had them everywhere in
They do
our
make you
house,
feel
don't they?
brighter no matter what, don't you?
Now, finally this evening, we enjoy a good